So we have lived here in San Diego for over 7 years now, but I still hold on to the fact that winter in San Diego is not quite winter. I might be cold, but there doesn't usually have snow on the ground. We don't usually have a frost. We have what I call 50, and I swear it's gonna snow. But there are still subtle signs of winter here in San Diego. One of the things that I just love is to notice the light. The light at this time of year is somehow different. Yeah, the time it comes up and it sets is different, but also something about the shadows and the angles, it's different in the winter. And it's also usually, this year is good for this, our green time, when the hills turn green due to the rain that we get. So for us here, it's pretty obvious that in winter, there's a bunch of growth that happens. But if you've lived someplace colder, you know that winter is usually gray and dreary. The deciduous trees are barren, the grass is dormant, but even there is beauty. There's icicles and snow. Plus, there's a mystery of what's happening underground. There in the fall, you would plant bulbs, tulips, hyacinths, daffodils, and they require frost in order to start their process of growing. And you cover those in the fall with some dirt, maybe some hay, and then you leave them be and hope that the squirrels don't come along and dig them up and eat them. Or you do as I do, and you plant them and you completely forget about them, right? Like you forget that you did it, you forget that it happened, and then in the springtime, even sometimes up through the snow, we'll pop this green sprout and you'll think, what was that? Oh yeah, I planted something there. And you'll be surprised and delighted. There is life that seemingly emerges after the seeming death of winter. And our gospel story sort of gets at that just a little bit. As you heard Chris tell us, Jesus tells this story as Jesus often does. And in many of his stories, he calls on some imagery that would have been very common and very familiar in Jesus' day. So today, we hear him telling Philip and Andrew a story about a grain of wheat. In our daily life here, we are not so familiar with grains of wheat, but if you lived then, you would be very aware about grains of wheat. But it is true that in order to grow fruit, that grain of wheat must be planted, must die. Now, if you also are familiar with Jesus' style of storytelling, you know that Jesus is not just talking about wheat. That's a good topic, but that's not all he has to say. He is talking about and letting his disciples and us know what is coming for him. His execution at the hands of the authorities, his burial, and his resurrection. So Jesus is sort of saying, hey, listen up. This single grain of wheat is about to die. But that's not all. There will be fruit, and that fruit will be you all, who will follow me even after my death. And because Jesus is a storytelling master, this story isn't just about wheat. It could be. It's not even just about Jesus' physical death that is coming. He's letting his disciples and us know that there is a letting go of life. Letting go of life as we know it, so that we can follow Jesus. Following Jesus means letting go of some of those things that we hold to be true, those beliefs. For example, to follow Jesus, we might need to let go of our own selfishness and live so that there might be abundance for all people. Following Jesus might mean that we need to let go of our expectations that we have for ourselves, the things we dream up, and roll with what God calls for us to do. Now, everything in our daily life, for the most part, implores us to hold on, to cling to hang on for dear life. Now, have you ever gone to the grocery store as a storm is about to happen? If you've done that, you know that all the milk, all the bread, all the necessities are likely gone from the shelves. Or perhaps you remember the early COVID days. You could not get toilet paper to save your life, right? Because we don't want to be without, so we have to hold on to it. If it's at the store, we must need it, so we have to buy it. Everything in our society says, hold on, cling to, because you don't know when you're going to need it. That attitude of holding on is what makes change so difficult. Because, friends, in order to change, we actually have to let go. We have to release. Jesus knows this, and Jesus knows us as humans. And he says, as the Message translates it that Chris read, anyone who holds on to life just as it is destroys that life. But if you let go, reckless in your love, you'll have it forever, real and eternal. Easier said than done, perhaps. But I want us to think about Elsa again. Just like I talked with the kids, take a look at her song to remind us of some of these words. Did you hear it? She sings about the kingdom of isolation that comes when she tries to keep her true self hidden, to keep it inside. She sings about concealing and not feeling so as to conform with who she thinks she needs to be. And then she belts out the truth. Let it go. Don't hold back. I don't care what they're going to say. Sure, as she says, sometimes change comes with some storms. But more often than not, change comes when we let go. When we let go of things that don't serve us, when we let go of things that are not about love. Change comes when we stop conforming and instead follow Jesus. Change comes when we live our true lives as we were created by God, rather than who society or even we think we should be. Friends, God is with us, and we can trust that God is at work, even when we can't see it. Kind of like that bulb underground in the winter, that wheat seed planted. Letting go and trusting God is hard. Our anxiety wants to hold us. Our fear wants us to stay the same. But if we can find the courage and the wisdom that sometimes comes when we allow something to be buried, when we let it go, when we trust that there is new growth to be had, life waiting to burst forth, that is when the beauty and change emerges. So as we continue our journey, I pray that we have the courage to let some seeds die and to have faith and trust that they will indeed produce fruit. For the ability to do that, for the ability to let go, we say thanks be to God. Amen.